Today I want to talk about this interesting article in Forbes that I know a lot of you saw, some of you didn't, but the title of it's called What We're Not Eating, A Potential Danger of Gluten-Free. And it's written by Megan Casserly, we'll say. And basically the entire article, which when I first heard about it, I was like, oh my gosh, this article is terrible. I can't believe this is happening. The article is interesting in and of itself, but basically it's about how people are using the gluten-free diet to cover up for eating disorders. And it's really interesting. I'm obviously going to link you back to this, but I'm going to read a couple clips from it. Basically, are these out of order? Oh dear. Basically, it talks about a high school cheerleading coach in Arizona that saw some stuff on her squad, that there were some upsetting symptoms, and that one of the youngest girls, there's 3 girls on the squad that, went through kind of a very lethargic, tons of weight loss. They began to complain about upset stomachs after eating just about anything. Their joints ached, they were always thirsty, and their coach thought it was an extreme amount even for athletes. She was even more disturbed that the girls had all dropped a significant amount of weight. The youngest, just 16, weighed in under 100 pounds, slim even for her 5'0" frame. So basically it says, I ultimately decided to confront my team as a whole to address what I thought was pretty obvious signs of eating disorder, Lara says, who's the coach. But she walked away from the team meeting even more confused and concerned than she'd entered it. It wasn't anorexia or bulimia, the girls stressed. One of them, she says, burst into tears as she described her recent struggle with a different problem altogether, an allergy to wheat and gluten, which can cause severe indigestion, fatigue, and insatiable thirst. The fact that all 3 of them were quote-unquote diagnosed with a similar problem just seemed unrealistic to me, but their parents each came to me separately to confirm the news. The article goes on, it does talk about celiac disease, that it is a legitimate, lifestyle, or a legitimate autoimmune disease where you cannot have gluten. And it does talk a little bit about gluten intolerance. There's a few, an expert reading this would see that there's a couple things that are incorrect about what she says. But the article goes on to say that all 3 of these girls were eventually diagnosed with eating disorders. 2 of them were put into in-treatment facilities, and one of them was pulled out of school, or maybe off the squad, I'm not sure. But it's saying that there's so much hype about it. Another quote says, the gluten-free diet has become a sign of enlightened eating, an intellectual diet supported by a slew of studies and a passionate cadre of celebrity supporters. Cadre? Yeah, I don't know, that's how you say it. Sorry about that. Jenny McCarthy professes gluten contributed to her son's autism. The View's Elizabeth Hasselbeck says it caused her years of chronic pain and subsequently penned a cookbook. Gwyneth Paltrow, newly minted domestic lifestyle guru, credits gluten-free eating for her lithe limbs and preternaturally taut stomach. Just last week, tennis star Novak Djokovic, you all know how to say that and I don't, sorry, sang the praises of his new gluten-free lifestyle, but all but gave the credit for his astounding domination in tennis. And it goes on about the market and how much money the gluten-free industry is bringing in, and then it talks about this pro-anorexia website saying that it's, gluten's in everything, it's in dressings, marinades, whatever, that, my sister's lost a bunch of weight because there's nothing she can eat, I guess she got diagnosed with gluten intolerance, and it's such a common allergy, no one second guesses me. I hope you guys are all well and good luck. And that's just, that's a whole nother issue in itself, that there are these pro-anorexia websites. I can't even get into that now. And there was the director of nutrition at Philadelphia's Renfrew Center, which is the country's first residential facility for the treatment of women with eating disorders, was not surprised, and she gave a quote that the mentality is restrict, restrict, restrict. You set a rule that you're not going to eat dairy, maybe, and the amount of food you eat becomes limited. Then maybe you're a vegan, and now you're gluten intolerant. What's left to eat? Next to nothing, and for some, that may be exactly the point. So basically, that is the short of this article. It's a long article, and I encourage you to read it. But it's interesting. And then, I talked to nutritionists about this, and basically she said this does happen all the time. And it's really frustrating because I feel like, in a lot of ways, there's so many options for me to eat. And, you know, my friend Kenzie, who you see in Cooking with Kenzie all the time, she's dairy-free, and we cook gluten-free and dairy-free together all the time. And basically, we say we've learned so much, we eat so much more than we did before because we have a knowledge that we never had by learning about these food restrictions. So I understand the controversy completely surrounding this, by, you know, people like me saying, well, this just totally discredits my diet. But instead of getting angry about it, you know, I think this is a good thing we're bringing to the forefront. I'm glad that we're seeing that there are, you know, that this is a new thing. People with eating disorders are attempting to cover up other issues they have. So instead of, you know, us lambasting this about eating disorders, I know I'm going to get so many people are not going to like what I'm saying right now, but instead of that, why don't we take this out of our world, out of the gluten-free world, and put this into the eating disorder world, and not worry about this, and hope that these people, now that this is out, hopefully nutritionists can seek this out and work with people to get better. And we can say, people who are gluten-free can say, wow, we have a ton of options. It's not necessarily about sitting out somewhere and not being able to eat anything and restricting our diets. While it feels like that at diagnosis, you know, a couple of years in, that it's not, the options are really endless, and eating a naturally gluten-free and naturally dairy-free diet is the healthiest diet you can be on. So, Mackenzie was saying she would really like to see a counter article about this, about people who possibly, you know, had eating disorders and worked forward towards, who have found food allergies and intolerances and have the opposite happen, if that's making any sense about what I'm saying. Which I think is true. There's a lot of studies, a lot of empirical evidence that people with food issues have eating disorders, but it's not the opposite, that a lot of people with celiac disease were diagnosed with bulimia or anorexia before, and it's just food issues in a very different way. So yeah, I would love to see a counter article as well, saying, you know, the opposite, and kind of doing some investigative journalism that way. But also in the article, and this is a super long video, I'm sorry if you haven't tuned out yet, but Megan Casserly, I am the only person and company cited in the comments. So it was interesting that she said that, and hey, it was interesting that she called me out, and I've had a lot of traffic to my website because of her, and she, you know, said she recommended my dining card. So I think that is nice. I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see it started a lot of discussion in the community, because that's really where it all starts, is really with discussion. So yeah. So sorry that was a little long. Hope that was a good Monday morning kickoff for you guys. I hope everyone's doing well out there. And as always, it's from Have Not to Have and Gluten-Free Dining. Thanks for watching.